Welcome to the Community ROI podcast. Here, senior community experts, founders, and C-level managers tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about how a community impacts business growth. By listening to these conversations, you'll get actionable steps on how to connect community goals with business goals to skyrocket business growth while still bringing extreme value to community members. My name is Yuri. I help people and brands shine through communities and personal connections. And my guest is Nikki Thibodeau, an amazing community expert, strategist, and leader who was also Shopify's first senior community strategist to help scale their efforts across a 10,000 plus person organization and for over 2 million merchants, and founder of the one and only the community, an extra special, safe, and trusted space for senior community builders. So welcome, Nikki.
Thank you so much for having me, Yuri. I'm really excited for this conversation.
It's been forever since our last conversation. I mean, like not counting all the LinkedIn messages here and there and posts and numerous conversations in the community. So yeah, it feels like we still have those, even though we're not. But let's fix it. So
Yes.
let's start with the first question. What's your definition of a community for business?
The definition that I have of community for business, I actually saw Garnett talk about this last week that kind of reinforced the language I use. But community isn't just engagement, it's relationships at scale. And so communities for brands help customers feel heard. Your brand becomes more human. And it's that relationships at scale piece that a lot of brands are trying to figure out. And so community can help with multiple different pieces of ROI across the business. But I think it's those relationships at scale.
And it also sounds like a little bit of like making company more human.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very important in today's digital age.
Yeah. And what's your definition of a community goal?
A community goal is one that helps the customers grow. So there's definitely a difference between a business goal and a community goal. The community goal should be focused, especially in business, around your customers.
So we're talking about this business community goals connection. I truly believe there is a huge connection. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what is one of the goals? Like, let's start with community goals. So what's
Yeah.
one of the community goals that you are working with at the moment or worked before that inspires you the most?
One of the community goals that inspires me the most is honestly the whole reason why I'm in community, which is to help customers solve the problems that they are trying to solve. So, for example, um, I used to work at Shopify, as you mentioned, and one of the things that we did inside of our community was to help customers put their site live quicker. And so a lot of people who get into business in entrepreneurship aren't really in it so that they can build websites. They're in it to like sell their products or to sell their services. And building a website is very low on the list of things that they want to be able to do. And one of the things that we could do in community is create customer experiences that helped them to launch sooner. And so that's been really inspirational to me is like, what is their problem? How can I help them solve it? And we get to do that a lot in community.
It sounds like working with on a support side team, like helping people to get to know your product and use it better and most likely in the right way.
Yes, absolutely.
Still, how it aligned with business goals?
Yes. So one of the things that I really love is that three levels of community strategy that we saw in the Business of Belonging book. And one of the reasons I really like that is because you see that it clearly defines business level, community level, and tactical level. And so I think about my community strategy exactly in that way. We take a look at the business level. So, for example, at Calix, which is a telecom company, we want our customers to be using our hardware as well as our software. And so one of the things that we try to do is we get them on our, actually, you can see this is a Lego version of our Giga Center or
Yeah.
Gigaspire, sorry. And one of the things that so a business level goal would be to deploy more Gigaspires. And so when you look at that as a business level goal, then you look, okay, well, what would that mean for the customer? What problem are we solving for the customer that would result in this business level goal of more gigaspires? And so for them, they would have more customers, they would have more subscribers. And so that obviously drives up revenue, et cetera, et cetera. And so you can start to build your programs based off of that business level goal. What is it for the customer? And then what is the tactic that I need to do in order to help them achieve those goals?
What are some of the specific actions that you take to kind of like help your customers and also help business to achieve this goal?
I think the biggest thing that you have to do, especially as a community builder, this will not be news to you, is like ask your customer, talk to for my community, you'll hear me say customer a lot. It's interchangeable with member because we have a closed customer community at Calix. And so it's really important to talk to your members. It's really important to have this open dialogue with your customers. And so the thing that you're able to achieve with community is you're able to take a look at what it is that they need from them. So you're not making assumptions. You are actually asking them. And then you're able to solve their problems. And a lot of times we find that people, the belonging piece and feeling heard is actually more powerful than solving their problems.
Mm.
But one of the things that we've done in the past is so we've created something that we call our Champions Cache. Cache is CACHE, like a cache on your web browser. Um, and one of the reasons why we created it is it's a customer listening program. And so through it, we tell them about programs before they've launched so that they have the ability to influence them. So either programs or content that we create, but we get their feedback before we actually launch. And so what this results in is, for example, we've created that live in the community, these things called roadmaps.
Mm.
And at other companies, they probably call them playbooks. And it's where you take a customer's pain point, like for us, we want to decrease their repeat troubleshooting calls. So we don't want their customers calling them with problems with their internet. And
Mm.
so we want to help them solve that piece of the puzzle. And so we build roadmaps that help them decrease those repeat troubleshooting calls with our products. And
Mm.
so it's all about creating those that help documentation or that whatever that is, but it was created because our customers said that's one of their pain points.
So you told that it's very important to build trust with customers and ask them, but how do you ensure that you really build trust and what they
Mm.
tell you is true or not something that you just want to hear?
Oh gosh. I think one of the things that's interesting is when I first got to Calix, um, it was very apparent that the trust was broken. One of the
Mm.
nice things about it being very apparent was that you knew that they felt like the community was a place that they could be heard. Um, but that did result in a lot of like we had so much negative feedback on the community when I started. And one of the things that was really great, our chief customer officer made a focus in 2024 of rebuilding trust
Mm.
because it was so apparent. And I think sometimes there is sometimes it's not as obvious, but I think one of the things that you'll need to, because in our community it was people got louder, there was more voices, there was more disdain for not feeling like we are hearing them, but they were telling us that a lot. And then if there's a lack of trust where you've had it before, sometimes that means people go silent. So actually in the community, and I obviously will not name names, but there was someone who had reached out to me and said that they weren't happy with something that we had done, and that and then they went quiet. And so I know that that's a lack of trust that they have built with us. And so it doesn't look the same in every community. It could look
Yeah.
like silence, and then you know, oh shoot, they don't trust us, they're not talking to us. Or it could look like very obvious, I don't trust you anymore. In fact, I have a slide from a presentation I did last year at community at the London event, Community
Mhm.
World. And I just had a bunch of things, a bunch of screenshots of our customers saying how much they don't trust us anymore.
The best thing to, we don't trust you. But I can literally, I'm like, there is no joke. It's good to know that because
I love
otherwise,
it.
you may think that something is bad and you are not doing something right. And maybe, I know from community builder perspective, that sometimes it feels like you are doing something wrong, and many people take it personally. And
Mhm.
it's not personal. It's like just something was broken somewhere, and you have to find the what exactly was broken.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think one of the things especially when I came in, I had already had two direct reports who had been here. And so they had been being barraged by these comments, but like it was all around the product. And my community moderators don't have anything to do with how the product runs. And so I think giving them that piece of information that like this our job is to make the customer feel heard, and to represent them and their voice within the business. Um, our job isn't to make the product stable, it's to hear them. And so one of the things that we did really early on was we partnered with our TAC team, which is our technical assistance center, to ensure more transparency about our product was being put on the community. And
Mm.
so all our customers wanted was to know what was happening, because things were happening and then they didn't have any visibility into it. And so you could see that as soon as you started to bring a little bit more transparency, it resulted in in building that trust with our customers. And so, actually, one of the best yesterday, we got an email from probably the biggest detractor on the community when I first started. And his email was saying that he wanted to employ some of the tactics that we have in the community internally at work to make others feel seen and heard. And I was like, whew, I rode that high all day. I'll still ride it for a while. But I think like one of the things that's huge about trust in community is it's a long game.
Yeah, yeah, it's something that people usually missing, and many clients that come in like, "Oh, you're building community, so you can solve everything overnight." And I'm like, not really. So let's talk about it. So,
Yes.
but yeah, I totally agree. And from what I've heard, it looks like you are mostly working with customer support team or just support team. And I'm curious, what other teams do you usually work with while building a community?
Yeah, so we actually sit in customer success.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first got to Calix, the community was very support focused. Now we're making the transition from, it's a not a transition, it's an and. So we're adding in a lot of that customer success focus. So we work a lot with our counterparts in success. But the next piece, so I'm not saying that we've solved that, we're working on that. The next piece, we started to work with marketing. And so, because a lot of their goals can be similar to our goals, like we have at Calix, our community has four buckets that we ladder all of our projects into, or all of our goals into.
Mm-hmm.
We look at engagement, and engagement that leads to product and feature adoption, case deflection, or renewals. And so we have those four buckets that everything ladders into. Well, a lot of the time, if you're talking about cross sell, upsell, which our marketing team definitely cares about, you are actually kind of talking about that feature adoption piece or product adoption piece. And so it's just product adoption for customers who don't yet have that product. And so in community, what we do is we come at it from a very human lens. We're not trying to sell you, we're trying to tell you how we can support you if you were to have that product,
Mm.
or how we can support you, how we can support your business needs if you were to have that product. And so one of the things that we've been doing, or we're starting to do, is partner more with our marketing team. Um, to create a funnel or a pipeline of those like community qualified leads.
I love the word partnering, and that's exactly
Mhm.
how I always approach building communities. Still, I know that not everyone approaches it the same way. So for many people, partnering is what do you want from me? So,
Yeah.
and I'm curious, like from your perspective, from your experience, how do you encourage people from other teams to work with a community team without not just adding more work on their plate?
Right. So the big thing, and actually I learned this when I was, you had mentioned I was Shopify's first community strategist. Now, that role gave me a ton of this experience, which
Hmm.
is you're going around to the business to shop community around, basically, and you want people to use community tactics in order to achieve their business goals. And so it's really all about listening. The big thing for me, and especially in Calix still, is you go around and you ask people what are you measured on? What are you trying to achieve? And what has not worked for you in the past? Like what's been missing for you? And sometimes there's no fit. Sometimes I can't with the focus of my community or the folks that are in my community, I'm not a fit for what you're trying to achieve. But a lot of the time, I am. Like we can create some sort of project or program that can help you achieve your business goals. For example, we recently partnered with a team for one of our products who were looking to get more customer stories. And we ran this event on the community where you had to like comment on each day's post in order to be entered into a raffle for prizes. Um, but the questions were like, we're all around our product and ways in which you've deployed the product. Are there any weird use cases that you've had with the product? And we got probably 9 customer stories out of
Hmm.
that.
Wow.
And it's all in their language. We know who these people are. And we're better able to tell a story now when we're going to try to sell more of that product, or when we're trying to explain to existing customers what they can do with that product.
And how do you approach when you need help from other teams?
In the exact same way, Yuri.
So you
It's
ask
it's
them to
never
listen to
from
you.
no,
I mean,
no, I
yeah,
go
just
and I
kidding.
listen to them because here's the
Mm.
thing. My goal, as I was mentioning, I have the goal of product or feature adoption. And my team aren't the subject matter experts. There's no way that they're going to know everything about all of our product suites. And so a lot of times I need help from other teams, whether it be their subject matter expertise, their time. But if I can tie their goals into my goals, that's how I get help.
Mm.
And so I actually don't normally, aside from like development teams, there's unfortunately not a lot of give and take on that. It's a lot of give from or a lot of give from them, and a lot of take on my part. But for the teams across the business, like product or support or sales or marketing, I can usually solve one of their pain points, in exchange for some sort of help.
And it also sounds like help me help you.
Yes, exactly. And if we can align our goals, like obviously sales and marketing are looking for either more leads or they're looking for that cross-sell upsell opportunity. And we can probably help them find that. And and depending on what it is that you need, whether it's content, whether it's access to emailing folks, like you just have to partner with the right teams with similar goals as you. and make it work. Like I've rarely had to go to another team and say, "Hey, I need help." I can usually always approach it from the angle of what are you trying to achieve, and then making it fit for both of our needs.
Mm. Sometimes it feels like many teams do not know that community exists. And
Yeah.
sometimes some teams do not want to know that. And the worst case scenario, of course, if management doesn't know that, but it's totally another story. I'm still
Yes.
curious, how do you bring visibility to the overall community impact on business internally?
Yes. I think it depends on which, like how your company communicates to
Hmm.
each other. And so at Shopify, it was very much Slack oriented. So you'd have a Slack channel, you'd try to get people into your Slack channel. You would tell stories about what the majority of your audience cares about. So, for example, at Shopify, a lot of folks cared about customer stories and unique customer stories. And so you would tell those stories within that channel. At Calix, it's different. And I think also my perspective is a little different because I'm a little bit more senior within the company here. And so it all depends on your audience. But one of the things that you have to be is a little relentless with being in front of people. I
Hmm.
think one of the things that community builders don't like doing is being out in front of everyone. But that's kind of something that you have to get over in order to make sure that people understand what it is you're doing, why you're doing it. There's this marketing rule of sevens that says that someone needs to hear something 7 times before it sinks in. And so if you haven't been in front of a team 7 times, then you can assume that they don't know that you exist. And I think I've always put that into play for myself where it's like, wow, I feel really annoying, but actually I've only been in front of the sales team 3 times, and so it's very likely that they don't know I exist. And
Yeah.
so if I can get closer to that marketing rule of seven, then I think I'm doing a good job about telling my story and explaining why the Calix community exists.
Talking about telling a story, it's always good to tell it when it's a bright side. But community is not always a bright side. There is also a dark side. So I wonder, how do you talk about the challenges that you face?
Yes. I'm laughing because there was when I first started at Calix, there was this leadership meeting that the leaders had the opportunity to ask a question to our C-suite. And the C-suite was up on stage with mics and and I remember I got up and I was fairly new to the company. And this was at a time that the community was very low on
Hmm.
trust with the with Calix. And I just asked, "Hey," so I read a post from the community and said, "This is what I'm seeing from customers. What are we doing to make it so that it's better?" And I think one of the things that I've learned by being a little bit more bullish like that um, is that it is all of our problem. Like it being having a community where it's not going great is actually the entire business's problem. Because, like I said before, community helps brands become human. And so, if the community is not going well, then the brand looks bad. And so, the business should care about that.
Hmm.
But also, if you position your community correctly, the business will care about it because it is about the customer. And there's an asterisk there because sometimes your community isn't about a customer. But for me specifically, it's really easy for me to talk about what's not going right because it's a reflection of the customer's perception of the brand. And so it's important for me to talk about what's not going right. But this other side of this that I wanted to mention here is that when I first started at Calix, we were a primarily community, and people came all the time to complain about the product and wanted more transparency. As soon as we started giving more transparency, people started talking to us less. And so if you're reporting on volume of posts or people logging into the community, then you're going to see a downturn. And being able to just explain why that downturn is happening and how it's actually a positive thing for the brand, I think it's really important for you to be able to tell that story.
It's something like you reminded me. I heard this long story long ago somewhere. It was like a person working on a factory and everything is working great, and some person is like, I don't know, driving something or whatever. And like, why is this engineer sitting and doesn't do anything? Like, why do you pay them so much? And like they went to an engineer, etc. Like, why are you sitting all the day? Like, and engineer like, something is not working right. No, everything works right. Something is broken. No, everything is okay. Why are you asking me? My job is done perfectly. So
Yeah.
it really reminds me that pretty much the same thing. So if nothing is happening in your community, it doesn't mean the community, sometimes it means that community sucks. It depends, but it doesn't
Yes.
mean that always, because sometimes you might be just such amazing that everything is good, you know? And I
Yes.
truly believe that it's from case to case. So it's not like a blueprint for everyone. Like if nothing happens in the community, that everything goes right. No, but I feel
No.
like you always have to know as a community builder, you always have to know, and you always have to let other teams and management know what exactly going on inside. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
exactly what you were talking about.
Yes, exactly. And like I said earlier, one of the things that I ensure that we are is the voice of the customer internally. And so if the customer is upset, I want the business to know that. And it's my job. That's what they hired
Yeah,
me to do,
yeah,
is to run
yeah,
this
yeah.
community. And that's part of it. Unfortunately, sometimes it's not all, hey, look, someone loves us.
Don't kill the messenger. Don't.
Yeah.
Nikki, I still have so many questions. I always love talking to you, and I wish to have the sky is the limit, but time is the limit. So the final question: what is one thing to do right away for someone struggling with identifying their community ROI?
Right. I think you have a conversation with if you're a part of a business, you want to get really clear about what the business goals are. And so I think one of the things that we often try to do is figure out in the wrong direction. So you take a look at the community first, and then you try to make it so that the community tells you what it's giving to you. That's just not the way it works. You want to take a look at what matters to the business and then work backward from there. What are the things that can tell me whether or not I have product feedback? So like I can work with product, or whether I have product adoption, or whether I have any community qualified leads. What are the things that the business cares about? So if the business says to you, I care about case deflection, then you can go work backward and see if that your community has anything to give to that today. But don't try to go from community to business, because you'll just try to make things fit where it doesn't fit. And then also you'll make the wrong assumptions, because at the end of the day, when you're measuring ROI for the community, you're actually measuring the ROI to the business. And so start with the business first, and then see if you have any of the components necessary to create case deflection. Like for example, in our community, we have a lot of case deflection. We just didn't know how to measure it when I first got here. And so going back, looking at industry standards, how do you normally measure case deflection? What does that look like here? And then doing some tests to see, okay, if I do this, does it make the number that I have go up or go down? And so now we have an established case deflection metric that we can test against, and I can showcase that our community does contribute to case deflection.
Yeah, I feel like it's very, very important moments that you mentioned that start with business,
Yeah.
not with community and go backward. Sometimes it can work, but once again,
Yes.
better start there. And
Yes.
last but not least, name two people I should reach out to talk about community ROI.
I love so many community
That's the
builders.
hardest part. I know. I know.
Yes, but I think Emma Wyatt, who's at Grammarly, would be an incredible person to talk to. And then I think you would really enjoy talking to Genevieve.
Hmm.
Um, she's a community builder out of San Francisco, and she does really cool things that are a little bit outside. She works inside of community for business, but she does some things that are outside business communities that like Burning Man and Running of the Brides, and I think a very interesting perspective on community.
Yeah, totally. Thank you very much. And what is the best way to connect with you?
LinkedIn. So just come and find me on LinkedIn. And then my username everywhere on the internet is Nikki, the number's 2987.
Why is that number?
It's my birthday.
Yeah, may make sense. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. And Nikki, first of all, thank you a lot for these amazing conversations. I'm learning so much from you, and everywhere here on LinkedIn in the community, and I very much encourage everyone, every senior community builder, if you are still not in the community, reach out to Nikki right away. You are missing out. You have to have this fear of missing out because you are missing out. It's the best space. And Nikki, thank you so much for sharing your amazing experience, for creating such a great space, and just like for being an amazing human. Thank you very
I
much.
appreciate it. Thank you so much, Yuri. I appreciate that.
And yeah, see you in the community world. And thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions about how the community can help you reach and overcome your business goals faster, let's connect on LinkedIn and talk about it. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.